morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining and spending some time with us. Today's webinar is about improving customer experience by empowering your employees. And this is actually the third in a series of webinars. We've called it our summer series on customer experiences. And the first couple focused a lot on things you can specifically do around the customer themselves. This one's going to take a little different look at customer experience around an equally important topic related to how we provide consistently great customer experiences. And that's looking internally and making sure that we're empowering the folks that are impacting customer experience, either directly or indirectly through their jobs. And that's by empowering your employees. So that is the topic of today's webinar. Again, I want to thank you for being with us, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Let me just start with some introductions. My name is Steve Tranchita. I'm the Vice President of Digital Solutions at a company called XNET. I'm a 30-year veteran of IT and business. I'm really passionate about today's topic, and I've worked with companies from small startups to some of the large Fortune 100s to really help them continue to leverage technology and modernize that technology and integrate that technology to grow their business and as I said earlier, provide a great overall business experience. And in XNET, we're a company that's headquartered in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. And we have offices in outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We have a development office in Guadalajara, Mexico. And a presence really around the country in a smattering of locations. So, we like to call ourselves kind of a consultancy with the scale and capabilities of some of the bigger players, but kind of the high touch family kind of service style of the smaller niche companies. And we think that's a really great place to be in because it allows us to connect with customers very personally. It allows us to serve our customers and craft our services to specific things that they need, and really become kind of a business partner to our clients. And so, transitioning to kind of what we do at an XNET, well, coincidentally or not, it revolves a lot around what we're going to talk about today, which is, look, it starts at the top with putting your customers at the center of the universe, right? And engaging with those customers across their entire journey, right? With using different digital channels and physical channels, and making those experiences personalized and highly intelligent, right? So customer experience is at the center of what we do, but we like to elevate that a level at an XNET and call what we do helping our customers provide connected experiences and deliver it, because the customer experience piece itself has historically been about optimizing touch points, right? And we think it really goes way beyond that in order to become kind of a lasting experience leader. It's interesting, companies, some of the leading thought leadership companies are starting to brand this in different ways. We call it connected experiences. Accenture calls it business experience, right? To make the point that no matter what business you guys are in the companies you work for, you're in the experience business, right? It's all about how people, how your employees, how your customers feel about your company over time, and helping them really transition that to feeling great about your company on a sustained level for a long time. And yes, that begins with customer experience at the center of the universe and engaging those customers across digital channels like mobile, email, SMS, web. It includes your contact center and social media and other engagement mechanisms. But those things themselves and the experience itself is powered by kind of all the stuff that happens behind the scenes that often is the source of any disconnects or bottlenecks in that customer experience. And so, again, that's what some companies call kind of business experience overall. That's what we call connected experiences, which is, we believe our job is to help our clients provide great customer experiences by putting together all the things that have to come together underneath the surface to consistently provide those things. And the first one of those on the bottom left of this slide is the topic of today's webinar, which is employee enablement, right? It's about making sure that the folks who are influencing the customer experience, again, directly or indirectly, are empowered in new and modern and innovative ways to serve their customers really well, right? And the other things we do all support that. So providing modern business applications, right, that work across departments and are not in silos, but integrated across departments and line of businesses, right? It's about data analytics, collecting, analyzing, and activating data to support better decisions and more personalized experiences. It's a big part of what we do. And then how you power all of this stuff with modern digital technology in your core, everything from cloud services to hybrid IT. Those are all services that we provide. And holistically, again, we like to say that this is the purpose of why we exist at XNET is to help you provide connected experiences in your organization. So I think this is a really important topic of today because, well, first of all, in today's world, in today's business climate, 9 out of 10 businesses are really competing primarily on the customer experience that they provide, right? And there's all kinds of research from Gartner to other leading companies who can show you very compelling statistics around that. You're all in the experience business, right? And the thing is that most leaders of businesses recognize this, right? They recognize it, they buy into it, they understand it. They view customer experience as a competitive differentiator, and they view being great at it as being vital for growing their company and fostering customer loyalty, as you can see from this Dimension Data survey question, right? So that's really interesting, but where things really start to get interesting and where we start to get into today's topic is that in that same survey of those business leaders, their employees were asked their take on things. And 17% of employees say that their organization takes a fully integrated approach to customer experience. That's not very good. And that's kind of one of our key themes for today is that taking a really integrated approach within your organization to providing a great customer experience across all departments, across line of businesses, across all job functions, is really one of the things that's going to separate kind of the customer experience leaders from the customer experience laggards. And so that's the topic today is how employee experience or EX impacts your customer experience or CX, right? And more and more this is being talked about today by a lot of thought leadership groups and companies where you're starting to see come out about how an engaged workforce is vital to delivering exceptional customer experience. Or let's just break it down really simply. Happy employees are key to delivering exceptional customer experience. If your employees are not projecting your brand message and your core values and your core value proposition in effective ways, that's going to show up pretty severely in your customer experience score. If they're not doing so because they're not empowered the way that they need to be, well, that's what we're here to talk about how to fix, right? Because today many businesses are relying on kind of older, obsolete models and outdated ways of working. Right? Things are changing. The way we work is changing, and your employees expect more, just like your customers do. So hopefully that's a good backdrop to our topics for today as we get into the meat of things here, folks. And just to kind of crystallize the scope here, when we think about an employee journey, you can think about that true end to end, like how does a prospective employee become aware of your company and maybe start to get interested in working there, to how do you onboard, how do you recruit and onboard that employee, to kind of the hiring process and workflow, to enabling and empower them, and then retaining them and turning them into advocates for your brand and for your company during and after their employment with you, right? So that's kind of the broad workflow of the employee journey. Well, we're not going to boil the ocean today, folks, this widely. We're going to actually hone in on this enablement piece. And we're going to say, how do we focus on the daily employee journey as they're doing their job, as that journey relates to customer interactions and that employee's sphere of influence on the customer experience. So essentially, instead of just going in and saying, let's optimize operations, we're saying, let's actually look at the customer journey itself. And here's kind of a typical way you'll see a customer journey depicted as they move through the life cycle with your company. What is each employee's role within that customer journey? And how do we empower them in that role to more effectively serve the customer and move them through that journey and continue to have them repeat, through that. So just to give you the lay of the land on the customer journey, kind of the left side is really about acquiring, right? And what I like about this visual is it kind of shows how, let's say you're in charge of marketing, right? Well, typically you start with kind of a broader reach, try to create awareness to a broader audience of your company. And then what you're trying to do is kind of narrow that and get more personalized down to the point where you have an actual identified known customer, right? So from awareness to them expressing interest and maybe actually giving you their email address, to then empowering them to evaluate your company and how you're different, to then the right side, which is, they're now a customer. And you want to actually give them that experience of ease of buying and then onboarding them, whether they're buying services or products. You want to provide service and support to them, to ultimately turning them into ambassadors for your brand on a sustainable long-term basis with trust, loyalty, and advocacy. And so what we're going to do in this webinar is we're going to ask the question, how do we empower our employees to deliver better customer experiences in this journey that you see here? So some people might say, well, isn't that just business process optimization? Because you're looking at each employee's process that they go through in a day within that journey. But what I'm encouraging everybody in this call to do is shift that focus, right? Business process optimization is really an internal initiative that focuses on just that optimization, like reducing costs, improving efficiency, improving safety, and in some cases, reducing human involvement in those processes. And this has been like the majority of focus when we look internally at our employees and how they work, right? Is there's so much emphasis on business process optimization and achieving the goals, some of the goals that you see here. And what I'm advocating for is for us to kind of shift that thinking and talk about, even as it relates to the employee, experience optimization. Focus on empowering your workforce to drive better customer experience for their sphere of influence, whether it's the front end of that journey or the back end of that journey or all different pieces. And focus on empowering them to deliver a consistent brand message in the way that you want your company reflected in the market. And that's going to drive satisfaction and loyalty both internally with your employees, right? Because happy employees are drivers of great customer experience, and also drive satisfaction and loyalty externally with your customers. So it's a little bit of a different mind shift. And I just think we get too caught up sometimes in optimization of business processes as it pertains to how employees work, right? And I really want us to keep the goal in mind of providing a great customer experience. So, that concept, if you buy into that, starts to permutate in a lot of ways in how you execute on your employee experience initiatives, right? Because typically when we talk about things like design thinking, you're talking about the customer journey and applying the principles of design thinking to how your customers want to interact with you. But we think that this same concepts that go into design thinking and make it such an effective kind of methodology really can be applied to your employee experience as well, right? You need to treat your employees as a competitive differentiator, and say that giving them the ability to have great experiences and provide great experiences for the customer are an iterative and fluid endeavor. You should apply all the same principles to testing out different strategies, to empathizing with your employees, conducting research to better understand, where they're facing frustrations and where they're facing bottlenecks that ultimately will lead to customer frustration and customer experience bottlenecks, right? Define key elements of that issue that need to be solved. Iterate through ideation exercises and then prototype and build solutions. So again, thinking about this in all the ways and techniques that we apply to optimizing customer touch points, we want you to do that with respect to your employees. And that includes, by the way, performing a true analysis of the employees' day in the life and week in the life as they impact customer experience, right? If you have an employee that's not in some way, shape, or form impacting the customer experience, well, I'm not sure I need to finish that sentence, right? Everybody in some way, shape, or form impacts the customer experience directly or indirectly, right? Let's find that, and let's find ways to improve it. So, okay, that's the backdrop. Now, I think what I'd like to do to continue this approach is let's kind of go through. Let's start with the front end of this journey, right? And let's go through the customer journey, and let's talk about some ways that we can apply that thinking to empowering our employees in better, modern, innovative ways. So starting with the front end of that journey, which is really, I guess you could sum it up by saying customer acquisition, right? What are some things that we can do there? Well, there's a lot of challenges in customer acquisition, right? How do you stand out in a digitally crowded market? Meaning, today's technology gives plenty of ways to saturate your prospective customers with offers and with information and with advertising. How do you stand out in that crowded market? I know that folks that are primarily focused on customer acquisition are constantly challenged with metrics like, how do we reduce the cost of acquiring new customers? How do we reduce our customer acquisition costs? And can you prove to me that the demand generation efforts that you're spending money on have a true ROI? That's something we see a lot of customers struggling with. And then things like conversion rates and actually turning more prospects into customers at a faster rate. These are all pretty standard challenges in customer acquisition. And so what we're saying is some key things that you need to do to empower your employees in this day and age that are really gaining a lot of traction and focus in the market are around the things at the bottom. First one is personalization. And that's also why we deliberately pictured the customer journey on the left side as narrowing down the focus and getting more and more personalized as you go from, hey, I want to generate awareness, to I want to actually get to know a customer and put custom content in front of them, custom offers in front of them, custom advice in front of them. Personalization is one area that's really becoming a focus. So, if you look at the big companies that provide MarTech solutions, as an example, let's just look at like Salesforce and Adobe, right? Adobe has the Adobe Experience Platform, which is all about driving, collecting data and applying data to drive personalized experiences. Salesforce recently purchased a personalization engine called Evergage, upper right-hand quadrant Gartner company, providing a personalization engine for marketing and also things like e-commerce and those things. Evergage was rebranded as Salesforce Interaction Studio, and it really is kind of becoming the cornerstone of Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud's platform to drive more personalization in your customer acquisition efforts. They also acquired another company called Datarama to help with how do you prove the ROI of demand generation efforts. And it's all about marketing analytics, measuring the effectiveness of your marketing efforts in kind of new and innovative ways, and building reports and dashboards around that effectiveness, right? So the big players that provide customer acquisition employee enablement tools are investing in kind of new areas. So 10 years ago, the investments were all around like email marketing, and how do you do great email marketing and automation around that. But we're way beyond that now. We're getting into things like unifying every bit of data I know about a prospect and ultimately a customer, right? And then using that data to personalize our outreaches in various ways. So I encourage you to start to take a look at tools, at personalization engine tools in your customer acquisition stack. And probably most importantly, your architecture for how you collect and then use customer and prospect data. Because this has really been a big area of growth in terms of architecture and technical capabilities with products out there today. And it's something we should be empowering our workforce with. You see kind of a general architecture of that on the right-hand side here. And then each one of the big players has kind of their own version of this picture. Well, how do I continuously collect data and stream it into kind of a customer data warehouse? 5 years ago, these were called data management platforms, which then turned into customer data platforms. Kind of the terminology is evolving, but it's really about collecting data, building a unified profile, and then taking those profiles and segmenting them for personalized outreaches and personalized interactions across different channels. All the while you're doing that, collecting data on how that stuff is performing and building marketing intelligence. So that's a little bit about trends in the customer acquisition piece and how we can empower our employees better. Let's keep moving kind of left to right in the customer journey here, folks. And let's talk about when someone actually is at the point where they're going to become a customer, right? Purchasing and onboarding, and kind of where some of the trends in direction and initiatives people are following. Well, first of all, I mean, this is one of the most important things you can do because it's your first impression, and that's the first challenge is, making that great first impression when somebody becomes a customer. And there's a lot of potential issues there that we see, especially around businesses and industries where the onboarding process can be complex. So for example, if you're a wealth management firm, opening a new investment account can be kind of a complex, long-running workflow, right? Onboarding someone in a clinical trial study kind of involves a bunch of things. And there's a lot of, you can look at your own industries, but there's a lot of cases where when somebody says, okay, I believe in you, I want to become a customer of yours, that onboarding process can immediately set you on the wrong path to customer experience. And we see that a lot. There's manual processes in there. There's sometimes paper-based pieces that get in the way. There's disconnects between middle office and back office and the front end folks, and lack of visibility by the customer into that process. So a lot of that are integration challenges, but here's some of the solutions that we help our clients implement with respect to these challenges. One is we're big proponents of architecture. And if you guys don't know what event-driven architecture is, I think it's kind of really a revolutionary way to think about technology architecture and how data flows across your company. It's kind of, the idea is anytime something of interest happens in your company that may impact customer experience, you could actually publish that to a centralized kind of nervous system called the Event Hub. And then everybody in your organization, from marketing to sales to customer service to advocacy to all the different, to finance, can all become aware in real time or near real time of that customer experience related event and react to it in the ways that they feel is best for them and their role in influencing the customer experience, right? So that type of real-time data flow system, and which we call the Event Hub here, is something we're doing more and more for our clients. One of the things that's great about that, guys, is that this is a very loosely coupled architecture principle, which means that when a customer starts onboarding, I don't have to know every downstream system and person and department that I need to notify. I just publish an event and say, everybody in this organization who has sphere of influence over this event and wants to participate in maybe sending them a welcome package or putting a record into our customer service database, or anything that needs to happen, consume the event, listen for the event, and consume the event. This eliminates a lot of the bottlenecks we see today about lack of data flow and lack of information sharing and knowledge across the organization. So event-driven architecture, we think, is a big one. And it's a big trend. Automation is another one, a huge topic today, and it's a huge piece of our services portfolio at XNET. Taking things that are really kind of repetitive, non-value adding things that people are doing and automating them in various ways. We partner with companies like Automation Anywhere to provide robotic process automation solutions and things like that. You should take a hard look at those, because at the end of the day, it's not about eliminating people. It's about allowing people to focus on the tasks that are going to add value for the customer, right? And not get caught up in the busy work that's not truly being impactful to the customer experience. So we encourage you to take a look at where automation can play a role here, where you can allow the customer to self-serve as best you can from whatever channel they're comfortable with. And you can even do things like apply conversational AI here to the process for information collection and some process automation. I think the world of conversational AI and what used to be called a classic chatbot, but now it's much more intelligent than that. We're seeing a lot of emerging players like Amelia and others in this space that can be leveraged at your companies. Okay, so let me get to the next piece here, which I think there's a lot to talk about. I think this is one of the more important topics of today, which is service and support, and how at your company you're set up to provide this. And the first point I'm going to make about employee empowerment with service and support is I'm going to encourage you to actually reimagine how you do this at your company. Completely reimagine. And I think we're going to start to see some serious transformation in what the kind of traditional call centers and things like that for service and support. So many companies today just are still stuck in the old age on this. Hey, thank you for your call. Press 1 for this. Press 2 for this. Press 3 for this. Press 4. Well, I'm not sure which one of those I want. Let me say something a little different. Oh, I heard you incorrectly. Did you say cancel your account? No, okay. I understand you want to ask me about a bill finally after 10 minutes. Please enter your social security number. Okay, thank you. And then you get put on hold. Then maybe you connect with an agent who says, hi, can I get your social security number? Or repeats information and doesn't know why you're calling. And maybe doesn't know that you are halfway through a digital onboarding process already. So this kind of poor call center experience is killing your customer experience. You end up with really frustrating experiences with your brand, and you can see this all over social media with complaints. It's frankly one of the bigger issues. I think that needs to be solved. And the other thing, sticking with the theme of today, folks, is when your customer gets this frustrated and this upset with you, think about how your employee then feels. Like your employee is going to feel helpless. It's going to feel like they're not to do their job. They're being put in bad situations with, by the time the customer gets to them, they're already frustrated. So how do we change all this? And I do think that there's a reimagining of traditional call centers to really think of them differently. Think of them as kind of universal contact centers, right? And so that's one change right there. Is it's not always call, it's omni-channel. So people might text, people might engage with you in different ways. So going from call center to contact center and reimagining kind of what you do, I think is a major trend in the market today. Gartner says 75% of the applications that we're using to empower our employees in the contact center are going to require an overhaul to keep pace with shifting business needs. We're working with clients today who say, when somebody calls in, my agent has to look at 6 different systems to effectively service that call. That's going to lead to frustration with the employee and then ultimately kind of with the customer. So, we really want to start to think about empowering the multi-purpose contact center that, yes, does service and support. That's the kind of the baseline thing that they do in the journey, but they also might get called because a customer has a question about your product that they're considering buying. and they need to be equally empowered to do that. So, there's intelligent call routing that has to happen, and that's listening to all the different channels. And so if it's not just calls, but it's any kind of point of contact, and routing that with all the channels that you engage with, allowing those contact center reps to be empowered with data about your customer. Remember, I talked about event-driven architecture and real-time data flow. I should know when I get engaged with that customer on chat or on voice, that they maybe just had an issue with one of our digital experiences and they're stuck, as best I can. Or I should at least know kind of who they are and their history as best I can, their profile, and that they talked to a call center rep 2 days ago, right? So listening to your customers with customer analytics. And then optimizing your workforce with continuously updating your workforce on how you want to portray your brand and key themes and key initiatives of your brand, right? Rarely do those things make their way to contact centers. At least there's generally a huge lag. And then you kind of have a disconnected brand message, right? So I think this is a big piece of the puzzle here. We think it is at an XNET. And that's why we're kind of really ramping up our contact center services that we're offering our clients, both from strategy and execution perspective. And then, folks, all of this kind of has to come together to achieve what you really want to achieve in this customer journey, which is building trust, advocacy, and loyalty. It's really all of the pieces that come before it that build and lead to that point, right? And that's kind of, again, in the visual here, you see kind of a narrow activity on the right-hand side, which is purchasing and onboarding. It's very specific, right? And then around that customer, there's kind of broader activity for contact center and service and support, ultimately to multiplying the effect of that customer by projecting their brand advocacy out to a broader market, which brings folks back in the other side of the cycle, right? That's what we're trying to get to here. And that's essentially kind of what is starting to be called the business of experience, right? Which is, folks, go beyond just optimizing touch points, right? Build a stack that reflects all the pieces of the iceberg, if you will, that ultimately have to come together to provide great customer experiences. Place your customers at the center, but apply intelligence and data to how you service them and interact with them, and empower your employees and how you operate internally, and put technology to work as the foundation kind of for all of this. That's really the new mantra and the new mandate moving forward. It's much less about siloed departments, right? Marketing does its own thing and has its own initiatives. Sales does its own thing and has its own initiatives and its own systems, right? Service has their own systems and has their own initiatives. No, all those things need to be integrated to provide consistent, great, sustainably great customer experiences. I encourage everybody to advocate at your company for building some core principles around this, so that all of your employees kind of buy into take kind of this kind of core principles into their daily jobs. First of all, everybody at your company, in every role that may be needed to run your company, should be aware of kind of your overall business mission and purpose, right? This almost gets to kind of your core, why do you exist, right? And making sure everybody at your company kind of thinks the same way about kind of why you exist as a company. You have a clear mission and purpose, right? That's the foundation for your brand. And every employee is an ambassador for your brand every day. And then innovation, continuous innovation is just so important. Don't just optimize CX touchpoints in silos, like let's optimize our email campaigns, or let's optimize our call center to be able to reduce call center times and things like that. It's solve problems through transformative new approaches. The other thing that I encourage customers to do more and more is, oftentimes when we talk about customer experience and making our employees more efficient, we tend to look at our own industry almost exclusively. So I'm going to look at other healthcare companies if I'm in healthcare. I'm going to look at other manufacturing companies if I'm in manufacturing. And yes, we should continue to do that. But innovation often starts in one industry, and then other industries pick up on that innovation. More importantly, customers pick up on innovation in one industry and then expect it in the other industry. So really expand your viewpoint to be cross-industry, and your kind of pulse of innovation to be cross-industry. And then, really try to integrate all the pieces of that customer life cycle across marketing, sales, service, and support. Become a listening company is another great principle. Transform into a listening organization. And there's been a lot of talk about how you collect data about your customers. But one of the key data sources that is underutilized, that really applies to this webinar, is listening to your employees, right? If you look at companies like Qualtrics, who are specialized companies in listening and collecting feedback, they really have a dual focus. They focus on customer feedback and they focus on employee feedback, because the employees are a key pulse in your organization. So solicit feedback from your employees as much as you solicit feedback from your customers about where they're frustrating and where you need to apply innovation. And in that listening, you're constantly searching for not just things you hear directly, but unmet needs where you discover as part of that listening where innovation can be applied, right? So you can solve problems in fundamentally new ways. And key takeaway, make experience everybody's business with a holistic and integrated approach. Right? Blend the front office with the back office, and make sure your technology and the data that's behind that tech systems are in sync and flowing in near real time across your organization. So these core principles, I think, are key to apply. Okay. So hopefully there were some really good nuggets in there for you folks to start thinking about and apply to your businesses and your unique situations. And hopefully you've heard some things here. Could be all of it, it could be pieces of it that are kind of really interesting to you, that kind of hit home and resonated. And maybe you say, okay, well, that's great. How do I get started? I'd like to kind of explore some of these trends and solutions in my organization a little more. What are some ways to get started? And we are a strategy-led organization at an XNET. So we really believe in starting by helping our clients set the direction and build an actionable plan for how to apply some of these ideas that I've just talked about. Whether you're talking about the whole thing, employee experience in general, or whether you want to get more narrow to how you help your call center transform into a next generation contact center. We have a process we use. We're not fancy about it. We call it our Kickstart process, that we repeat over and over again with our clients to help them accelerate those initiatives to an executable plan. And there's really, we start by looking at the target roles in your organization and how holistic we think we need to go. For each of those target roles, what is their sphere of influence on the customer journey? Too many times that question is not asked. It's about, let me look at how they work and try to optimize that process. But really ask the question that within the process that an employee is following in their day-to-day job, what customer experience are they directly or indirectly influencing? What is their day in the life or week in the life? And how are they doing it today, right? And quickly, we're going to come up with key needs and gaps around employee empowerment that we're going to find. I think it's a great way to surface gaps in your employee empowerment and your employee experience. And then we have tools that we bring to the table to rank and prioritize those needs and gaps in ways that tie back to your organizational readiness, the impact that filling that gap would have on your ultimate business and growing your business. So we can quickly bubble to the top, kind of the top things we think we need to take action on. And then we start the solution around those things that we need to take action on. So that's step two. We'll do detailed analysis of those use cases and workflows, do a more detailed look at the requirements for solving them. We'll collaboratively with you talk about solution options, and that includes technology that we might be able to bring to bear that is modern, is more integrated, the data flows better, you know, all those kinds of things, from everything from off the shelf to customizations where we think your business is unique, right? And we can do things like tools like a Pew matrix to contrast and compare these options for you, to ultimately come up with a set of recommendations and a strategy and roadmap that you can then begin to execute with confidence that it ties back to your highest priority initiatives and directly impacts your employee experience by empowering them to drive a better customer experience. So that's our Kickstart process. If you're interested in this, if it sounds interesting to you, reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk about applying this methodology to your organization to better empower your employees. Okay, great. So that's really the content, folks, that we have today. I'm so grateful for all those who joined today, and I want to thank you for joining us. I haven't been tracking any of the chats or anything like that, so I don't know if there's any questions out there that have been posted. Maybe somebody could help me with that I can answer at this point.
Hi, Steve. We do have one question from the audience. What partners do you recommend to help for modernizing the contact center?
Okay, what partners do I recommend for the concept of kind of a holistic call center and the modernization? Great question. So we like to be agnostic to start with and strategy led, right? But we do work with, I mean, the industry's kind of leading contact center as a service providers like NICE, CX1, and Genesys, and Five9, and we really have our pulse on kind of the market leaders out there. And on the surface, a lot of those market leaders in contact center solutions, they kind of all sound similar and offer similar capabilities, right? Our job is to take you that list of market leaders and say, let's do a thorough analysis of your specific needs, your specific business objectives, and your specific challenges, and then make a recommendation within that ecosystem of the right technology. So, we never kind of make one blanket recommendation that says, hey, all of you guys today should go call NICE CX1, and that may be the right answer to you, but again, we're going to bring to the table kind of the market leaders, apply our Kickstart process and assessment, which, by the way, are very short in duration. We're not talking about 4 to 6 months of analysis here. We're talking about a couple of weeks of analysis to really make sure we understand your unique needs and then can recommend the best call center solution for you. And we'll bring to the table the best players in the market at the time to do that. Thank you for your question. Really, really good question.
Looks like that was it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. I hope this was valuable to you. I hope it gave you some interesting things to think about along the way. And we're happy to follow up. You can ultimately get a hold of me if you have specific questions. We'd be happy to follow up and talk more about your specific needs. Thank you for joining today, everybody, and hope you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thank you.